Welcome back, everybody, to Podcast Combat Sports. I'm your host, Frank Palumbo, with a new episode, Episode 8, covering the legalization of mixed martial arts in New York State. Today's guest is Ronald McEvilly from Tigon Academy. You may have seen him on Facebook following the legalization of mixed martial arts. He showed up to every rally. He's met with UFC stars and administration, trying to help them connect to the right people in New York State government in order to get this thing passed. Well, I have him on today. He's got loads of stories and lots of experience around martial arts and mixed martial arts. It's an hour-long episode today, and it's awesome. It's packed with lots of cool stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to let you enjoy this. This is Ron McEvilly and his experiences with New York State politics and mixed martial arts. Just a little warning that for about the first 15 seconds, I had a little technical difficulties. But here you go. Hi, Ron. It's Frank Palumbo from Plattsburgh. I thought, we'd kind of get into the whole legalization and your experience with that, but maybe we can kind of go back to, your experience in the martial arts and kind of lead into the legal stuff.
Communications, but I did a little bit of training on the side because of having the previous little bit when I was younger. Then when I got out of the service, I hooked up with Master Harper from Northeast Taekwondo, and got into Taekwondo again, and got my black belt, AAU black belt. And in the meantime, while I was training Taekwondo, I started popping around here and there and training with guys like Nolan Dutcher and Jerry Spiegel and so on and so forth. Just a bunch of local guys that were doing jiu-jitsu and other art forms, which got me into the whole realm of this mixed martial arts and got me interested and started seeing it on TV, and actually competed amateur in '06. Had a couple fights. I wasn't the best fighter in the world, I'll be honest with you. I had a professional fight. After that, I got injured. I opened a school in the meantime in 2008, Tigon Academy, and with Tigon Academy, it opened up some doors for me for training and teaching and just sharing my knowledge and bringing other instructors in and creating an environment of mixed martial arts. When I opened the school is when I kind of started getting some, not necessarily issues, but, people questioning what this mixed martial arts was, and kind of the neighbors not complaining, but, just questioning what was going on, which led me to, I work for the New York State Comptroller's office, so I naturally worked downtown. So I took a couple walks up to the Capitol and started knocking on doors. And from there, Tigon grew, and so wasn't the opportunity with the legalization of mixed martial arts. And as I was popping door to door, people were starting to recognize me as, at first it was Wolverine, because I have these, I got chops on the side of my face.
Yeah, the chops.
Yeah. So long story short, it kind of caught on. I was going to a lot of political stuff. I was trying to show that martial arts was a good thing and not a bad thing. And we did a lot of exhibitions, and we did a lot of parades and non-for-profits, self-defense courses. I work with non-for-profits in the upstate New York area, where I do fatherhood initiative programs to help young dads. And we tried to reach out as much as we could to really show a different side to martial arts than just the highlight reel of somebody getting knocked out over and over again. And long story short, I kind of, in the meantime, hooked up with MMA for New York. As I was going door to door, they were too. They were representing the UFC. And David Weinrob, he was the representing attorney. And I got a chance to kind of hook in with them and travel around to the offices when they were in town, and get to meet some great people like Ronda Rousey, Chris Wyman, and a couple other fighters too. But long story short, when they parted, I kind of kept the wheels going and kept knocking on doors, and over time it was we just saw it passed the assembly. Obviously it's not completely passed, but it's in the governor's budget. But long story short is I was lucky to have 2 assembly members recognize me on the floor as a big contributor to the legalization. Even though it was a complete team effort across the board, it just felt good for myself just to hear that, the appreciation. I hope that sums it up for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it seems like, it's kind of hard to sum up. It's probably, more than 8 years worth of experience kind of into, to 2 or 3 minute explanation. But no, it's cool stuff. I think I've been following you on Facebook, especially, when I see like the pictures of like Ronda Rousey, and I'm like, oh, Ron's on my friends list. And then I'm going back. I'm thinking about, when we might have met or connected, and I'm thinking it's somewhere around Kaged Combat in like the 2012, I'm assuming, because that's really where, my most exposure to Tigon. I'm not sure if I competed against one of your guys or if one of my guys competed against one of your guys, but I kind of associate Tigon with the Kaged Combat down there in Saratoga.
Cool. Yeah, we did a lot. We did Cage Wars and Kaged Combat a lot. It was local. They're great organizations, and Kaged Combat continues, and Cage Wars I think is taking a little break. But long story short, we stayed local. It was just it was easier to build the, especially with your fan base and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so important that you get your actual fans and friends and family there, because it really helps those local events.
Oh yeah, most definitely. What team did you have?
I'm with Plattsburgh Combat Sports up in Plattsburgh, and we started out in like the Burlington Brawl over in Burlington, Vermont, and then we went down to Kaged Combat a couple of times. Yeah,
we did Burlington Brawl. I had Joe Howard and who else did I have in there? Chris Lewis. Who threw those? Was that the King James?
No, King James I think had something called Fight Fest, where I know one time he had DMX come in.
Yep. We did a couple of his.
Burlington Brawl was Julio Fernandez and Vermont Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now mostly the Vermont is covered by Extreme Combat with Kathy Richardson. Yeah,
no, she's big. I see her all over the place.
Yeah. She's doing a good job, and she's expanding as well.
Cool.
It's interesting to see how it's all going to pan out with now New York.
I have the bill open, and I just like skimming through it every once in a while, and there's some interesting stuff in here, with the control of, even the training facilities. I mean, if you get somebody in there, there's a position open right now. It was the applicants were up until not last Friday, but the Friday before. It was for the MMA coordinator position. And that I think is going to really dictate a lot of this from what I was told.
So they're looking to recruit someone to spearhead the implementation?
Oh, yeah. They already had the job out there. I personally think that it's, the way the state works, the job was probably written for somebody. What benefits me is that I've been around where what their qualifications were, I superseded well, above and beyond. So I'm hoping I can get at least an interview. I don't know. It's interesting because the way it was described was the person would literally set up the regulation and everything, right down to the judges and refs and how they would be certified and all that jazz. Because even in the bill, it says that it's up to the commission. But there's not an actual athletic commission position, from my understanding.
So what are the requirements for that position? Is it anything to do with like law degree, or Anything related?
Wait, let me see if I got it on my phone, to be honest with you. Hold on 1 second here. I apologize.
I can always edit out long pauses. I do them all the time.
Fair enough, fair enough. All right, here we go. I got it right here. All right, so it says, about the Athletic Commission is authorized to regulate professional boxing, wrestling, contest matches, blah, 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 blah. In addition, the Cuomo's proposed 2016 executive budget expands the jurisdiction of the State Athletic Commission to provide for legalization and regulation of MMA matches and exhibitions within the state of New York. The department is seeking qualified candidates for the temporary position of project coordinator for the New York State Athletic Commission to assist in building the organizational structure and capacity to regulate MMA. The hiring for this position is contingent upon the enactment of legislation authorizing MMA. A minimum of 5 years of professional experience related to mixed martial arts. Doesn't really say any more than that. It says experience working with another state commission, a promoter of MMA events, and or a televised network that regularly produces MMA events is preferred. The individual should also have strong computer skills, writing skills, personal skills, and should have a broad base of contacts in the MMA industry. And then it goes on to duty descriptions, and it says, under the direction of the executive director of the State Athletic Commission, the incumbent will assist the New York State Athletic Commission in creating the appropriate infrastructure in order to fulfill its proposed oversight function so that mixed martial arts will operate safely, efficiently, and professionally. Toward that end, the individual must have a broad experience of regulation of MMA to assist the establishment of MMA rules, to recruit competent officials, to recruit event inspectors and other staff, to help create an operations manual for the oversight of MMA, and to help to address the system needs of the Athletic Commission in regulating the sport. And that's it. It says it's a temporary position, and
so they're looking for someone who's basically has this, at least the bare bones to flesh it out and implement it.
Right. It sounds like the start of it. In other words, based off of the bill itself, the way it reads, if this is the right position for what this bill is stating on the control of everything, it's going to dictate possible. The way I read it, it's going to dictate who's going to say, about the schools and training facilities and events and so on and so forth. It's an interesting, it's interesting. It's simple. I just don't know where to go with it,
One moment. I have to shut my door.
We just got a puppy too. What do you got? You got what kind of dog you got?
I have two. I have one that's half Shar Pei and half Bull Terrier, and I have one that's Papillon. And Mom's coming home right now, so they love to let the neighborhood know when she's coming home. But about a year and a half ago, there was some burglaries in the area, and they got just about every house around us except for us. So I've learned to tolerate the barking. So
yeah, no. I feel it. I just bought I was just going to say before was I sold my property and school per se. I didn't sell the school name to Brian Bury. Long story short is I bought a farm out in about an hour plus from Albany. I like working with inner city kids and getting kids out of, give them something different to do than trouble and streets and video games. So what we're trying to do out here is almost a farm lifestyle. It's just different.
No, it's good skills to learn.
Yeah, no, most definitely. We're doing like self-sufficient type living. Just trying to live off the land type of deal. Raise our own animals, the whole nine. But I just whacked a bobcat that was he got two of my chickens and one of my ducks. you got to see the size of this thing. I got it on Facebook, but the bobcat was huge. It was no joke, legit.
Yeah, aren't those things starting to kind of come out a little more out in this area?
Yeah, they got a little too close for our liking per se. It's interesting going from, because I'm a city boy, and then coming out here to the country, and I like the hunting and I like hiking and all that jazz. But living out here is a totally different world. I don't know where where do you live? Are you more like city, suburbs, country?
Yeah, well, it's a city of Plattsburgh, but I'm from Long Island originally, and
Okay.
but it's a suburb. It's a suburb just surrounded by mountains.
Fair enough. Cool.
So, actually, going back to you had mentioned going like door to door. What is it that you're doing? Just kind of promoting the sport of MMA?
No, just trying to. I went to more of the people who were against it or had questions for it. My best example is Margaret Markey. I went there. I also did non-for-profit work for the Empire State Sports Council for the Liberty Games. It's a not-for-profit that took the place of the state games. So they're trying to start something new per se. But long story short is, we went to meet her one time, and I didn't realize her full, title, so on and so forth, with her being the chair of tourism, parks, and sports development. So when we got there, we were chatting, and she heard that martial arts was on there, and she wasn't happy about that. So, I talked with her, and after the meeting, we stepped out, I thought about it, and then, I wrote her an email and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you again about that, and she was open to it. So I went in, and we chatted for about an hour, and she was straight with me, and I appreciated her honesty, and I tried to be as straight, I gave her what, the ins and outs per se, and why we needed, regulation and sanctioning. And then she started questioning, how a mother per se, my mom, could allow her son in this type of environment. And then she invited my mother, and me and my mother went for about an hour plus. I think it was almost an hour and a half, sit down with her. And it was just a discussion about, they got chatting, woman to woman, mother to mother type stuff. But, it was just to explain, the whys and, what it's done for me and the people around me. Now, she obviously was still against it, and, I respect her opinion, but then you got a guy like Phil Steck that when the UFC was in town with Ronda Rousey, they had mentioned that they were trying to talk with Phil Steck, and he wasn't too open to it because what happened was he had Bob Riley's part of his district when Phil got his seat, Mr. Steck. When he got his seat, they redistricted the lines, and he got part of Bob Riley, who was the biggest opponent to MMA from the beginning when Mr. Riley retired. So, long story short, me and my wife, my wife and I, we're into politics. We like to support people. We go to rallies. We donate, so on and so forth. So Mr. Steck was one of those guys that happened to come into our school looking for signatures and opportunity per se. And we liked what he had to say, and we appreciated it, and signed on board with him and tried to help him out. And long story short, when the UFC had mentioned, hey, this is a guy that we need to talk to, I just happened to know him and his staff, and it was pretty nice to give a call over and get in with him. And he just needed it to be explained to him what was going on and how it was working, and especially with the amateurs. My big fight was for the amateur regulation, just for safety concerns and regulation across the board. But long story short, I explained it to him, and after 2 or 3 meetings, I want to say it took me about the 3rd meeting, we shook hands and he agreed that he would support the bill, and that kind of worked out in our favor in that instance per se.
That's awesome. So does the UFC owe you one now?
Yeah. No, nobody, I look at it, like I said before, it's all team effort, and I'm dead serious where, I have pride in my work and what I've done, not just with legislation type stuff, but just all aspects of life. And, there was more than just a one-man show. In this instance, of course, you had, Jim Gina, who's does the reporting through, he's MMAjunkie.com. Stephen Colfer, he's a guy down in New York City that was knocking on doors, and he's a school owner, and just another person out there. And then, like I said before, the MMA for New York girls, there was Jamie, Julie, and Ashley. Those 3 girls were just, everywhere there was something going on, they were there promoting it. And then, you had the UFC people come in and support it, but it was, I think it was just a New York State pulling together, and, fans and friends and, guys like yourself doing podcasts about these things. And I think it all comes together at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
absolutely. Currently, we have the assembly that they approved it. It was a pretty landslide vote.
Yeah.
So and now, from what I understand, it just requires signature at this point. And you say it's in the budget. What exactly, best case scenario and worst case scenario? What does that mean for where we're at right now?
From my understanding, and I'm not a political guy by any means. I just kind of happen to be in the right place at the right time, we'll say, with the beginning of this and questioning, so on and so forth. But from my understanding, it goes in front of the governor, and he signs it. 120 days later, hopefully everything is put together and it's put into law. And then however it's set up and put together is how everybody's got to follow the rules.
So if there's some shows that are in place now, say amateur, there's got to be some kind of window period before the new law takes effect?
Well, that 120 days from the signature of the governor.
Okay.
So I believe that's what I question too, because there's still shows going on, and I just don't know how that works, to be honest with you. I don't know if you got to wait 120 days or right now. I don't know, or when the governor signs it. That's from my understanding, it's at the 120-day mark. But I mean,
I've got to imagine that the shows are allowed to go on because they've been scheduled while it was still, still lawful. And then if there's a problem, then, maybe action will be taken, but just hopefully there's no major injuries that occur at these shows.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. And you've been around, you know the deal. There's shows that are, some are good and some are bad, and, there's always a chance, and there's always that small risk factor that's, something bad could happen, but let's just hope not. And again, I hope the right person, if it's, like I said, I applied for it, but if it's not me, I hope the right person's in there that can just do the right thing for the community as a whole. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like even the good shows have maybe one thing that maybe goes wrong, or there's some kind of mismatch, and I wouldn't want to say it taints it, but it's just it was good except for that. I feel like just about every show I've been to has something like that.
Fair. I can agree with that. I think you're going to have that with the regulation. It will limit it, but there's always going to be those instances where it might look like a mismatch, but it might have fit on paper. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the other side. It being amateur mixed martial arts. Yeah, things like that might happen. I've been wrestling for as long as I can remember, and there's mismatches every single tournament or every single dual meet. There's a mismatch. It's just the stakes aren't quite as high. But when it comes down to it, with both sports, the referee is there to protect the athlete. So there's a measure already in place to really almost ward that off or take care of those athletes.
That's as long as you have qualified people doing it. That's where I've seen it lack, is especially with the reffing, and that's my biggest. I don't know what to say. The
right.
thing that bothers me is you go to some of these shows and the refs really, they have to be a good qualified ref, you really got to know the sport. I really think so, in the sense of, you got to know more than just pass the class. Because there's positions and there's moves that, a lot of these guys don't even know that are happening, and that's how people get hurt. Or I've seen instances where it looks like the ref is almost afraid to stop the situation, or they jump in too soon because they called the past one too long. You know what I'm saying? It's like this. I mean, it comes with experience. Don't get me wrong, and you're not going to have the perfect, people right across the board right off the bat. But that's my big worry, especially when it comes to the safety of the athlete, is the referee, because that is the person that controls that cage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done a little bit of reffing, especially in wrestling. I haven't reffed mixed martial arts yet, but it's something I'm definitely open to in the coming years, especially with it now, being here in my home state. But there's a learning curve with officiating and reffing, and I think a lot about wrestling and apply it to mixed martial arts. When I'm watching a wrestling match, I know every single position that's going to happen and just kind of see it coming. And I think, along with what you're saying, is these referees need to see them coming in order to preemptively take care of the athlete.
Yep, I agree. And know not to jump too soon neither. It's that fine. I mean, it really comes with experience, which kind of sucks, because your experience is really screwing up one or the others on the way. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but like anything else, that's something that can be practiced in a controlled atmosphere, like a gym. And I've looked into referee training courses, and they do simulate and practice. They practice stoppages, and it's a skill that you can acquire like anything else.
I did the ABC certification. I'm ABC certified in both reffing and judging, and that's considered nationwide. That's what every other state uses for rules.
What's AVC?
And it's a good class. Kevin
McDonald.
Yes, geez, he is the one that gives the class. Great class, let me tell you. But to do it one day, and if you don't, thankfully I was working with a lot of martial artists, so it worked. But he was calling out moves and positions, and if you didn't know if you didn't do it, I don't, I understand people watch it and are a fan are all about it, but if you don't do it consistently or haven't done it consistently, you really don't know the real level of danger per se on each move or each position. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Big John McCarthy has a podcast. I've listened to it a couple of times, and he, even when he's on other people's podcasts, he goes in, he practices MMA and jiu-jitsu, and just stays up on it so that he can just stay up on the new trends and just know what's coming.
That's a good ref. If you really want to be on top of the game, I think you got to be in it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And if you're going to referee it, if you're a fan of it, yeah, you definitely got to be in it. Is just for your own personal growth.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
So, what else about this bill? You got any stories along with your trips to Albany and your experiences with the legalization? Anybody throwing shoes in the Assembly House or anything?
If you caught, did you see it when it was passed on TV or anything?
No, I heard that there was some shenanigans where they were almost trying to filibuster, and they just kind of went on. They knew it was going to pass, so they went on. They just laid everything out, and
it seemed like an attention grabber. You had it's O'Donnell. It's actually Rosie O'Donnell's brother. Comparing it to gay porn and how he felt about it. It was gay porn with a different ending, and he described it as two sweaty men and all this jazz. And it's like, it just was idiotic. It was very disappointing because I've been up there a couple times where the opportunity was it for it to come to the floor, and I listened to all the bills passed and how they discuss them. And let me tell you, politics is definitely it's a unique sport. I'll say the things they say and the things they bring up, and it's so asinine and kind of ridiculous. And I seen Silver would sleep in his chair, and here's a guy who was a big opponent against it, and he's sitting there sleeping in his chair while votes are going on other things. He didn't even know what was going on. It's just, you had this with it passing, you had an assembly member, comparing it or saying with mixed martial arts or martial arts in general, that it would give an opportunity for sex offenders to work with children if they legalized it. Now, it's funny because some of these assembly members are, up on ethics charges, and they're talking about mixed martial arts like they know something's going on, and it's like, at least be real on what you're saying. And it's a little disheartening on our government and the way the system works. But
yeah, you'd think that the pre-existing laws would kind of take precedence over that.
It's just, you'd have to see it to believe it, but it's just not it's not what you would think it would be. I would just expect it to be very professional, very on top of the game, and they have their little procedures, but then it's like a clown show in some points. And it's with the MMA bill, it was a clown show because the examples and what they said against it was really not intelligent to even say.
You can just tell when MMA gets like some mainstream attention, and they just don't use the right language along with the sport. They're just not up on the lingo, and it's you have every MMA fan just kind of shaking their head, and they just can't represent it right. And, there's plenty of people out there that they could just pull in that can explain these things so much better. And
oh, yeah.
It's just frustrating that we can be so passionate about something and see something that's so entertaining, and you go through the experience of preparing for a bout, and it's such a great experience, and then you just have people just shitting all over it.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a misunderstanding in a lot of ways, because the ones that are shitting on it just don't even deserve to talk, to be honest with you. But there is, and there was, that handful that were truly against it for their own justified reasons, and I do respect that. I mean, it's a part of politics. You're going to have the ones who agree and who don't, or the ones who are representing their constituents and the ones who don't. And you hope the voting, laws and opportunity, change that in the future. But it just is what it is, and I'm disappointed with our our legislators per se, but they finally did pass it, and it is what it is. They all want a high five now, but how long's it been? And we're the last.
Yeah, New York being the last that's a big statement just right there, that it's a political thing. So are you just kind of bring I guess everyone, the listeners, up to speed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the general consensus is that the Fertittas own hotels in Las Vegas and they're non-union, so the culinary union found a way to block them from New York. Is that your perception as well? 'Cause that's where I've been for the last couple of years.
It's funny because I actually have a little bit of insight on this because my brother, he's part owner of, it's called McFadden's. It's in the Rio out in Vegas. He owns bars and restaurants across the United States. And long story short is he was having the same ordeal in Vegas where they wanted to start a union, and the restaurants were, bar associations were fighting against it because of the way the pay was going to actually change for the employee themselves, to where the employee wouldn't be compensated as much. Now, New York State being a union state, that's where Sheldon Silver kind of stepped in, took the fight over, I would like to say, after Bob Riley, and he's all for the culinary union, and the culinary union made him happy some way, shape, or form, and that's where the pressure came from, in the correlation between the two. So it's to me, that's, I don't know, it seems very childish. If the people want something, they should be pushing for it. And, I think you would agree, it's, the people who get in that cage are, we'd like to all think, and 99.9% of the time they are prepared individuals that know what they're getting themselves into, and want to do it. It's not a forced act by any way, but I guess it is what it is,
Politics is crazy. I'm definitely not knowledgeable enough on it to really take it apart and put it back together. But MMA has been, it's been in New York. It has been, whether it was amateurs or I think it was UFC 6 or something was in Buffalo. Not to mention the professional shows that have been on, I guess, Native American reservations. They just kind of self-govern. Any experience with those?
With the reservations and stuff?
Yeah.
No, we never went to any of those. We like I said, Cage Combat, Cage Wars were our main. We did a couple shows out in Vermont, like the King James. We did, our typical tournaments. We did Full Force was one back in the day that we used to do. Mike Littlefield was the promoter. I'm trying to think of the other ones, and that was Massachusetts.
Yeah, Full Force sounds familiar, but nothing I've ever been involved with.
Yeah, that was actually John Jones fought in Full Force. That was his, I want to say his first fight was there or something.
Was that when he went by Sexual Chocolate or something, some other nickname?
I don't remember. I don't remember. That was funny, yeah. But, yeah, no, we've been around. I mean, well, we did a lot of, there was something called the Empire State Warrior Challenge. What happened was years ago, in about 2006, there was a pastor in East Durham, New York, and there was a bunch of, us martial art guys that used to play around at the motorcycle events, and he kind of saw what we're doing and wanted to see if we wanted to get involved with his little charity, helping kids, so on and so forth, and he wanted to throw exhibition matches, and that was kind of his way, I want to say, around any questioning, because back then there wasn't really anything around that was, mixed martial arts related like that. and there was a lot of questions on whether or not it was, if we were able to do it. And this was before Cage Wars, Cage Combat. I mean, this was before any other promotion that I knew of. And they just, he put it on, and there were some, actually Keith Barish, who fought in the UFC. He fought at those events, when they first started. Including Nolan Dutcher and myself, and, trying to think of who else that would be notable. Quentin, his last name, Quentin Jackson, I think his name is. Kid out of Pennsylvania. But long story short, there was some. It was interesting. Let's put it that way, because it was in a ring, and we wore shin and instep pads. We wore the gloves, amateur or training style gloves. And it was just a bunch of, guys kind of testing themselves out, and had some matches going, and it was pretty interesting. It was fun.
Was there like ground fighting as well?
Well, yeah, yep. Everything applied. Just the shin insteps were the difference compared to what the amateur scene is. I actually think there should be a couple levels. I think there should be an amateur scene with shin and insteps and the bigger style gloves or training style gloves. I think they're like 7-ounce gloves, and then have almost like a semi-pro, and then have a pro. Just to, I think we both know that, some of these guys get in there and they want to experience it and they want to fight and all this other jazz, but they get in there and they realize it's not for them. Maybe have it be a little bit safer for their first time.
Yeah, and when I first read the unified rules, there was something, and I'm kind of going off of memory, but there was, almost like a level below amateur where there was just no face contact or no contact to the head, and I just remember seeing that, and I had fought in the Burlington Brawl where, it was you could throw elbows, so it was basically the only difference at the time that I could tell between the Burlington Brawl and the UFC was the time of the rounds.
Right.
So, it's a good thing nobody really knew how to throw elbows back then, or at that level. Someone would have been in trouble. But
right.
But those things can also be implemented from camp to camp, like just an agreement, and the sanctioning body can always, just kind of be there to accept these extra limitations. I think things like that are great for the sport because they show that self-awareness, and I like the communication between camps. It's cooperative until it's competitive.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Holly Holm approach, we'll say. Just a more laid back, relaxed, camps talking, trying to be friendly, respectful type of scenario. I don't like the tough attitude type, camps are, almost hating each other and all this other stuff, because it's not about that.
Well, I think the Gracies brought that in. It was very much, it was a fight before the fight, and it was a fight after the fight.
Fair.
But, when I started competing, even in wrestling, it was, you don't talk to the other team. You don't interact with the other team. You shake hands before, you shake hands after, and that's it. And if I lost, I didn't really want to socialize with the other people because, I almost developed these feelings that where, I'm going to get you next time. And I didn't want to see a human side of them. I just wanted that pain to linger until the next time.
Fair.
I mean, that's just where I was at. But now that I don't compete anymore, I like interacting with other camps. I like, picking their brain and just learning as much as I can. And that's also kind of why I put together this podcast, just kind of branch out a little bit.
Hey, and I respect that you have the background because there are a lot of people that are jumping in this sport without any background, and they really don't understand the true meaning behind the words per se, especially in conversation. It's like I said, it's just the experience behind it is shown, through the knowledge per se. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you think mixed martial arts goes forward? Where do we go now? I hear a lot about, not a lot. Pretty much today, I've seen a couple of articles coming out saying that it's really going to limit the amount of competition in New York State. It's not going to be like it is now with, say the UFC in town. It's going to be maybe just the UFC and Bellator and whoever else can afford the insurance.
Yeah, no, I seen all that. I don't know. I really think it depends on who gets on the inside, who gets that position. But then again, somebody could be put in that position and they already have things written the way that it's going to be written. Politics is politics, and they want things a certain way, and you just don't know. I mean, it's tough to tell. I hope to be, on the inside somehow to where I can, possibly answer those questions, but we'll see what the future lies,
Yeah, I think it's going to be almost like the anticipation is going to be very nerve-wracking until we start having these shows and we see the result of it. I can see the insurance. I've gotten Academy insurance before, and it was a lot more inexpensive than I thought it was going to be. I'd say the insurance I got, just off memory here, was somewhere around $400 to $500 for the year for a mixed martial arts academy, and I can't see. Well, I've never put on an event, but I can't see a single event being, $100,000 like the article that I saw for mixed martial arts.
That's what they're saying. The because of the limits that are requested by the state through the bill, it's that's what they're kind of quoting per se out there. Because I don't think many, or if any, insurance companies will even cover it. I mean, there's got to be one insurance company that will. Don't get me wrong, but your common ones that the amateur organizations were using, we'll just stay with the same examples, Cage Wars and Cage Combat. They're not going to be able to afford those premiums for that type of coverage. Definitely changes the game.
I think that there's going to be some things that'll be implemented where we do have some more restrictions, maybe bigger gloves, maybe, I think it's New Jersey has no striking on the ground, which I think is silly.
For their professional?
No, for amateur.
Oh.
But just to kind of keep amateurs going and keep this increased participation and these competitive opportunities, I think that there's going to have to be some give, because if it really is anywhere close to that $100,000, the sport's gonna kind of maybe even go underground or go over to Vermont for a while until these things get worked out, and it's almost going to be counterproductive.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to go over like Vermont especially. I think that's the easiest one for these guys and girls to compete.
Yeah, I think even Canada or Quebec is having an issue with amateur and professional mixed martial arts. I spoke with. I was at a UFC last year around this time, and I was talking to a couple of Canadians, and they had competed there in that arena in Montreal, but they say it's not legal anymore. I'm not sure if you meant for the amateurs or for professionals, but clearly it was for professionals, but not for the amateurs. I think that TKO promotion, that George St. Pierre, I guess he's the most famous guy to come out of the TKO promotion, which was really based out of Montreal. It's now defunct. So, we have those Canadian amateurs coming down to Vermont, and this area of New York that's close to the border. They have us coming down to Plattsburgh and into Burlington and St. Albans, Vermont, to compete. And, they're very good, those Canadians, but, I mean, they're training to go pro. So it looks like this thing might even just, probably go over to Vermont for a while until the kinks get worked out.
Well, again, I still think whoever gets in there, if you get the right person in there and you got the right work ethic, they got the right idea, they got the right vision, they got the right people, backing and on board, if that all rolls together, who knows? I think we got the better opportunity. If we get the wrong person there, it's going to be a crapshoot, and then amateur's going to be over in Vermont probably for the next couple of years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we're kind of no worse off than we are now, especially us. We're very close to that Vermont border. But, it might have to be minimal change, until it gets worked out. Sad, but it's a start, I suppose. Yeah,
well, you got to start somewhere, and it does benefit with, when the UFC does come in, the revenue for the state will hopefully kind of open up their eyes a little bit more. You got to start somewhere, and, money does make the wheel go around, especially in the state of New York. So the way I look at it is, let's ride this out for a little while. We'll still fight the good battle of good regulation and taking care of the amateurs. Like I said, my focus is the amateurs, those young guys and girls that get in there, and some of them don't really know what they're getting themselves into. And it would be nice if there was, at least, someone at the top, that had, some type of care for the amateurs, because without the amateurs, you don't have pros, and it just, it does make me nervous on where the future lies for the sport in the state.
Well, I've had you for just about an hour.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to throw in there?
No, just good talk, man. It was a pleasure and honor speaking with you tonight. And if there's anything I could ever do for you, let me know.
And if there's anything that I or the community up here can do to get you in that position, let me know. And if you ever want to come back on the show and put out a message, then I'd love to have you.
No, most definitely. Hey, if I find out of a possible interview or an interview, I'll let you know, and hopefully we can get a little bit more push. And like I said, I can promise the amateurs of the state of New York and the professionals, but I'm focused on keeping these amateurs safe so we can have a great professional environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. No. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. I truly appreciate it, and I'll be listening.
Probably get it out Wednesday maybe, and I'll tag you in it, and maybe we'll start sharing it around.
Do you put the whole hour on?
Well, I'll probably edit it down a little bit, but then I'll do like an intro and outro. So it'll probably, I'm guessing it'll be somewhere around an hour and 10 minutes total show. But I don't know. I might keep the farm talk in there just for fun.
I like it. All right, brother. Yo, good talking to you. Nice meeting you. And
all right, Ron. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good one.
And there you have it. There is politics in New York State regarding mixed martial arts. Sounds to me like we elect these people to make decisions on our behalf, and they don't even take the time to get informed on topics. So if it's this bad with just a sport and the sanctioning and safety of something that people want, then can you imagine how ugly it gets with life and death situations? But I gotta wish Ron luck. He's pursuing getting this New York State Mixed Martial Arts Coordinator position. It's the temporary position that he was talking about during the show. And that's basically going to be the leader for mixed martial arts, the implementation of mixed martial arts in the state. So hopefully we get one of our own, and we don't get, a puppet or someone who, really doesn't want the position. Hopefully we get a martial artist. hopefully we get someone who's business-minded. Sounds to me like Ron is one of us, and he wants the position. So, Ron, if there's anything that we can do to support you, I would love to help and get involved in this. Okay, moving on. Time to check the calendar. April 22nd in Connecticut is the Bellator event. That's a Friday, April 22nd. The following night, we have Extreme Combat Norwich. That's April 23rd. And also that night, there's a show in Whitehall, New York. So locally, that does it for April. In May, we're stacked in May. On the 6th of May, we have Extreme Combat at the University of Vermont. That's the Northeast Muay Thai Championships. That's May 6th. Then the following weekend, there's Victory Fighting Championships on May 14th in Watertown. That's John Gibbons' promotion. They do an awesome job. That's a Can-Am. So there's going to be a couple of Canadian-American matchups. And there's just some belts on the line. He does a very good job promoting that event. There's always like a little press release that goes out every time a match gets put together. So you get a little bio and background on those fighters. So that's pretty cool. You should check out John Gibbons' Facebook page. Following weekend, Spirit FC returns with Spirit FC 8. That's May 20th. So I believe that one's going to be in Messina, but I'm still waiting to see more information on that. But I believe that's a Friday. But the date I have for that is May 20th. The following night is Extreme Combat in Rouses Point, New York. So that's going to be actually another show with a lot of Canadian-American matchups. Team H2O, they always bring it when they come down. And then the following weekend, May 28th, Kaged Combat, Saratoga Springs City Center, which is a very, very cool venue. So that does it for April and May in Northern New York and Vermont. And that does it for me this week. Good luck to everybody. Train well. And I can't wait to see you in the cage. In the meantime, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, PCSMMA. That's Plattsburgh Combat Sports. The name of the show is Podcast Combat Sports. Also, hashtag PCSMMA. Subscribe to me on SoundCloud and iTunes. Just type in PCSMMA and hit the subscribe button. Also, keep your fingers crossed that the governor signs that piece of paper and legalizes and implements mixed martial arts. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see you next week. Ciao, Littatori.